Good morning, folks. Colin, do you want to kick us off with an update on the database you're building?
Yeah, okay. Right, let's share the screen. Hopefully that should come up in a second, if somebody can let me know when it's up.
It's up there, Col.
Right, this is just the main login screen that anybody would see. Helen, Chris knows about this, and Bob to a certain extent. This is an online collaboration database that I'm currently in the process of writing that will be available for anybody to have free of charge, and it allows users anywhere in the world to transcribe data into a master database. So if you've got a fellow researcher in the States or in Australia that wants to give you some transcription data, they can actually transcribe it into this program, and it can all sit in the same place. So if we log in, and once you're logged in, this is the normal inputters view. So if we go to UK records, we can pull up, say, 1841 census, and that will then pull up an 1841 census screen. We can then choose an image. Let's get one from here. Where are we? No, I don't want that. No, I do want that, sorry. Images, census, let's pull up that one. Right. So that will now load the census image into the top box. Obviously, depending on the size of the image, depends on the time it takes. While that's loading, if you look down here, these are all your input boxes, and the ones that have coloured in red around the outside are mandatory fields, and the ones that are grey are non-mandatory. So we've now got the census image here that you can drag around the screen and zoom in if you want to, and zoom back out again. And then you just transcribe your data below here, and then hit the upload data button. I won't bother to waste any time by transcribing that particular record now.
Colin, is the image stored as well, or is it just
No, the image is stored as well in the database.
Oh, fantastic.
So the image is stored on the hard disk with a unique reference to the data, to the image, so that that image can then be viewed by anybody at any time. So I've also done birth certificate, so we'll forget about that one. This works in exactly the same way. You pull up a scanned birth certificate, input the data. Parish registers, so again, if you've got a parish register, it always pulls up the last image automatically, so you don't have to reload the image, or you can just choose a new one each time. And then you can transcribe the marriage registers. I've created another source record, which is for anything that doesn't fall into those categories. So here it would be, I don't know, a gravestone or a newspaper article or anything like that. You can attach the image at the top and then transcribe it below. And then you've got a free-form text field here to add any data that you like for that. US Census, exactly the same, but this relies on US Census input. Then if we go to an admin screen, we've then got UK records. So if we go 1841 census again, what this does is then that pulls up all the 1841 census data that have been input, and you can then export it as a CSV file or an Excel file at the moment. So, and if you look here, this is the unique name of the image, just here, and that's stored within the database. We've got the create master, no, that's not yet done. So that's not, this is the live site rather than my development site. So that's not there. So this will be for the create master persona and all that sort of thing.
Colin, do you want to explain what a master persona is?
Right, okay. The concept of a master persona is, if you imagine you have got an individual, if we take this first one here, which is John Lefevre. So his master record would be his name, his date of birth, his sex, and his place of birth or country of birth. That would be, and maybe his death you would incorporate into that master persona of that individual. And then underneath that you have your various facts that relate to that individual. 1841 census, 1851 census, birth certificate, parish register, etc. Now, those sub-records are not actually stored as part of that master persona. The master persona sits there as a named, unique individual, and you can add events to their lifetime as they appear. In your transcription. So there's no need to go through and do the 1841 followed by the 1851, 61 census for him. You leave attaching those to his master persona record until you get to it. There's no need to do them all at the same time. So the idea is you have this master individual with lots of attached sub-source records to them. So I think, is that enough, Bob?
Colin, one thing, if you do, let's say you take out an 1841 census and you've got a family of, say, 10 people, so you transcribe them all in, and then at some stage in the future you then go back and link the individuals back to that image, is that right?
Yeah, well, you go back, you link them to the transcription, and part of that transcription has the image within it.
Yes.
Yes? So the image is a sub-record of the transcription. That's how I perceive it currently, anyway.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking it's quite similar to, well, it's a different approach, but it's similar to, say, the custodian. But you're starting from raw data rather, sorry, custodian starting from raw data, whereas you're starting from a transcribed image. Yeah. So it's quite interesting, yeah.
Basically, it's as Bob's aware, on Family Historian, there's a thing called ancestral sources, which is a great method of recording sources for an individual in your family history program, Family Historian in this case. But it is only a personal tool. It is not a collaboration tool. I see this as being an online store for collaborators for either a one-name study or the same genealogy for a conventional ancestor study, sharing it around the world. And it's up to the...
There was someone on the forum recently asking about collaboration tools with single online databases. I can't... And she was it was a she was pointed at TNG.
Yeah.
But really TNG is fine when you've got the data there, but it doesn't link in the sources and the images as you're doing. So... And the other rules would be complementary to that.
Yeah. The other problem I see with TNG and all of those is that by allowing access to that application, you are allowing other people to change your master data. Whereas the concept of this application I'm writing is the admin or admins are responsible for tying the transcribed data to the master persona. Not everybody can tie the data to the master persona. That way it keeps the data clean, or as clean as you can possibly make it. And the idea is you can link and unlink these source records at will if you have admin permissions. So if you find that I've linked this John Lefevre record to the wrong John Lefevre, I don't lose either the master persona or the transcribed record. I just delink them, and that transcription record is then sitting there, and I can apply that to any other master persona at any time in the future. You don't have to retranscribe it. You haven't lost it because it's sitting there as a record in its own right.
Okay, so if I was working with, let's say I've got a niece in Western Australia,
Yeah.
and I ask her to pop down to the local records and transcribe some certificates, or pop along to her mother-in-law's attic and get out the reams of old certificates that are sitting there.
Yeah.
She could transcribe them in without knowing anything about genealogical tools or anything. She
Yep.
just types in what's there. Then
Yes.
I, as the admin, would go in and link everybody together and thank her very much for that little transcription work. So the people that are helping need to know absolutely nothing about information technology or tools or anything.
Yep. This is just purely a website that they type data into, as far as they're concerned.
Absolutely, Chris. And what makes this different from your point about TNG? TNG does allow shared collaboration. You can allow folks to add records in terms of sources and add images, but as Colin said, you're expecting the transcriber to create a person record for each event. They may or may not choose to link that person to, let's say, the broader tree, but in reality they've got to transcribe the records almost blankly, unless they use something like ancestral sources. But the TNG online is really more of a shared collaboration to build family trees, whereas Colin's tackling the sources and keeping that data separate for now, but linking the records together where we
It'd
can.
be very interesting for local schools and things. I mean, they could use this kind of thing very simply by, going back through their old school records and just putting stuff in. You don't have to be a genealogist to use this tool, but the end user, the admins, are the people that would need those skills and to put everything together. So I think it's brilliant. It will allow me to make use of I haven't got grandchildren, but if I had, could use grandchildren's nephews and nieces around the world to put their data in from stories that they're being told by in-laws, and which I won't have a hope in hell of going out to Perth, Western Australia, to ask all these questions.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where the other data entry box comes in from. It allows you to add stories or whatever you want to add there, and as long as you can tie them to the master persona, you just add them in as records for that master persona.
I mean, for example, I've got it's on my wife's side, but they just come up with a squadron leader who died in a Beaufighter bomber off the coast of India during the Second World War. Now, we've got his little obituary, and that can be scanned in, the person's name pulled out, and then linked in. But there, from now on, his obituary, and he's got a thing in the London Gazette for a DFC or something. But those can be all pulled together and assigned to this guy's name.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Okay, good. Thank you very much for that, Colin.
Okay.
I've got all kinds of alerts going off. Someone's trying to contact me. Just a second.
Okay.
Oh.
Your screen's too big, Bob.
Oh, I've got someone obviously on the wrong Hangout.
So, Colin, do you want to talk about the bulletin board then?
Oh yes, thank you.
Basically we're now up over I think it was 212, 213 members, so it's going from strength to strength. It's not being very much of an administrative task
Just
at the
a butt in,
moment.
Colin. Helen, are you aware of the bulletin board?
I am. Thank you. I must admit I've done nothing about it because I very recently moved house and I'm still working part-time. So,
No problem.
I'm pleading, yeah.
Insufficient time.
Thank you, but not today.
I thought I'd better butt in, Colin, in case we were talking around Helen.
No, thank you. My intentions are good. I just haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Morning. Ended up joining the wrong hangout.
That's all right, Joe. Do you want to turn your speakers down a bit, Joe? We're getting a bit of feedback from you, or I am anyway.
Okay, I'm just talking through my mic at the moment.
You can mute the mic, Joe, unless you're talking. That might be the best idea.
Is that better?
That's a bit better, yeah.
Okay, I'll mute between times then.
I've found the admin of the bulletin board relatively easy. The only thing is just approving the members as they come along. I've tightened up a few of the bits and pieces, so we're not getting the registrations I was getting from the weird and wonderful email addresses, and we haven't seen any spam yet. So I'm very pleased with how it's gone so far. It's been relatively painless. Now it's gone live.
Yeah, I think Colin experience has shown with things like Facebook, Google+, it starts slow. There'll be a core bunch of folks that use it, and slowly, person by person, they'll move over to it when they see some of the stuff that's available in there when they join.
Yes, yeah. I think the stickies and things like this, once we get people to write them, will be a big thing. Like Sue Horseman did one on marriage challenges the other day, and I've stickied that. You did one, Bob, that I stickied as well. Right. I think these are good source reference documents for people coming in later.
Right. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Colin, for the 2 updates. Joe, you missed the update on the new online collaboration tool, and I know yours is a study most like Colin's, let's say, or Colin's is most like yours.
Yeah.
So Colin's got this.
Okay, tell me about the online collaboration tool.
Colin's essentially developed this online database that, you know how I think you attach text records as almost source citations for a person.
Yep.
Colin's extended that idea and added structure, so you have a person identity to which you attach transcribed records with images for life events like births, baptisms, marriages, burials, census entries, and wills and the like. But if you'd like to, after this is done, feel free to review the footage.
Okay.
This is live on air now, so it'll be available on the YouTube channel as soon as we're done.
Can I just ask about the bulletin board? Does the bulletin board come through as a digest?
No, because will
it?
No.
Ah.
No, the only thing you can do is if you join the bulletin board, what you can do is you can click the notify button on any of the boards and be notified of new posts on the boards that you are interested in, but you must then go to the board to read them. It is not a mailing list, it is an online discussion forum. It's a shame that the mailing list was ever called a forum, because it's not, whereas the bulletin board is in fact a proper forum, discussion forum.
Right, okay.
So no, you must visit the site to read the data.
Okay, that will make it less useful for me, because I'm a very passive absorber of the stuff that comes through from the current mailing list.
Well, there's another way of using it, Joe, that's I think most folks who want to use it when they want to prefer. As Colin says, you can set up a notify to be alerted of every single post, or alternatively, when you go to the bulletin board, the top left-hand corner, there's a link that allows you to show just those messages that have been posted since you were last there.
Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you. So
you can go to the board and then catch up with what you've missed. Okay, the posts are beginning to build, so if you leave it too long, then you can be overwhelmed with how much stuff you haven't read. But just like the emails you receive, you can choose which ones you click on and which ones you don't.
Well, at least with the emails, you can sort of like skim read down them and then delete. but
if you-
I suppose it's horses for courses.
If you look at the bulletin board structure, though, Joe, what you can say is, I'm not interested in DNA, so I won't look at that board at all. I'm not interested in custodian, so I won't look at any posts on there. And so that's done the filtering for you. But if you're interested in Hangouts, then you just look at the Hangout board. Yeah, so you can pick and choose what you look at. But again, it could be a push board, but we would have to open it to the public to allow it to push data out to something like Google Feed Reader or something like that. But of course, there is no desire to make the board public like that, so we can't make use of the RSS feeds to Feed Reader or any other feed reader.
Right.
There's some discussion, Colin, about whether or not one individual topic can be made available to the public, and whether or not we do that via the bulletin board or via a wiki.
Yes, we can on the bulletin board, but
Okay.
I think that needs a bigger discussion before that
certainly,
be allowed to occur, because some people might not be exactly politic when they post there if it's a public board too, and if we're trying to encourage members, it might not be ideal. But anyway,
Understood.
I agree with Joe that I'm more of a passive. I just, there's all these RSS feeds and Twitter and everything. Everything comes into my email, everything, and I can quickly skim down. And if there's something that catches my eye in the subject, then I have a look at it. Now, Debbie has pointed out that in Twitter that doesn't work very well because not many people actually put anything in the subject. But that's tough. That's the way I look at it. Now, the bulletin board at the moment, because there are quite relatively few topics, it's easy to scan. But I think in a couple of years, when it's so successful and there are thousands of topics, then it'll be something that I'll say to myself, oh, I wonder if they've done anything about this. I'll go in and do a search. It wouldn't be a regular point of going in. It would just be too much.
no, I think it's like anything. You use it how you want to use it. There's no, you're not forced to use it in any way in particular.
I think one of the other benefits as well is the discussions there for perpetuity. You haven't got to go and trawl through a question and then try and find and search for all of the answers on the archive forum, which is stored somewhere else. So a new member joining now can review the discussion on topics of interest to them.
How long will the archive be available there in terms of searching on a subject?
Basically, until Anne tells me we're running out of space and I need to truncate the database. But I suspect it's going to be at least 5 years worth, Helen, at least.
Yes, yeah.
So,
because every so often, I was thinking every so often I do a Google search on my Hockliffe name, and I'm referred back to my original post to, RootsWeb from about 10 years ago.
there's no need to do that, don't you? You can set up an alert on Google for it to alert you every time a new page appears with Hockliffe on it.
Yes, I have done that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And then you get the poor users. You have the poor users who have cloud as a name.
Oh, I'm total sympathy.
There's no way they can have those alerts.
No. No. I am fortunate that my in modern terms, the most likely problem I'll have is that Travelodge at Hockliffe, someone's trying to get rid of some cheap bookings.
Okay, one last notice for you. Tessa's posted recently a tutorial on how to extract the Social Security Death Index. My understanding is that these are folks that have died in the US. So if you've got a one-name study, take a look at Tessa's video. There is some talk or rumours that the SSDI, as it's known, might be subject to, I think, data protection, but essentially withdrawn at some stage in the future. So Tessa urges do it sooner rather than later, and certainly before it goes away.
And where do we find this, Bob?
It's all in Tessa's video, but I think it's the New England Family History Society or New England Genealogical.
Where's Tessa's video?
That's on YouTube. If you open up your chat window, I'll find the link and I'll put it on there for you.
Right, thank you.
It's probably one of the alerts you might have missed on your inbox for Google+. It's certainly been circulated there on Facebook.
Was it on the forum?
No, it hasn't been put on the forum because I've been having discussions with Debbie about how we put it on the forum. And
No. Just Tessa's note to say it's on there.
I think it might have been, yeah. Where are we?
Okay, well,
that's the one I want. Yeah, okay, carry on, Bob. I'll sort the link out and I'll.
Brilliant
right,
stuff.
Here we are.
It's a 30-minute video, very easy to watch and easy to follow. It essentially involves copying the data from a website in text form, pasting it into Excel, sorting out the data, and then ending up with a searchable Excel data for your ONS.
They are, Joe. It's there for you now.
Lovely. Thank you, Colin.
If anyone else wants the link, then either let myself or Colin know and we'll send you a link to it. Right. Are you ready to head off to the Caribbean, to warmer climes? Let me give you some historical context. Now, I will keep this brief, but many folks, in my experience, within their ONS, will have someone at some point, at least, who pops up in the Caribbean for whatever reason, whether they're in the military, and a sailor, whether they've gone to live there, whether they were forced to go there, let's say. So it's not rare at all. And looking at Barbados in particular, Barbados was claimed by the British in 1625 and settled in 1627. The island was completely uninhabited, so there was no one there. And it remained in British hands until 1966, when Barbados obtained independence from England. So two routes into Barbados. All of the registered, well, many of the registers, I should say, have been filmed by the folks at the Latter-day Saints, because it was one of the routes from England into the US. So many folks stopped off in Barbados, then eventually moved into the US. Some folks moved to New England, found the religious conditions there in the early 1600s a bit too intimidating, and headed off to Barbados. Barbados has the nickname of Little England, so pretty much from a church parish record point of view, everything you can expect to find in Barbados is pretty much the same as you'd expect to find in England. The films that have been released are for 1637 up to 1887. Two ways into the films, I'll show you both of those. One of those involves using the IGI. Now, the IGI doesn't go quite back to 1637. I did mention Barbados was settled in 1627, and there was churches from the onset. Unfortunately, the conditions in Barbados have resulted in the parish registers no longer surviving, certainly for the early period. So there's no existence of many parish records, some until as late as 1802, if I recall. But pushing those aside, it's a tiny little place. We're talking about 166 square miles. So we're talking somewhere in the region of the Isle of Wight or Chester. And it was divided up into 11 parishes. And there's been, at its peak, about 270,000 people there. So it's not even quite as big as Chris's study. But nonetheless, particularly during the 1650s, when Cromwell was in charge of England, many royalists moved from the UK to Barbados and quickly set about re-establishing the normal order of things. So some fairly wealthy folks have turned up. So as I've mentioned, the films have been, the parish registers have been filmed by Latter-day Saints. What's recently been released are high-quality images of 1637 to 1887. The indexes, or additional indexes to individuals in those records, is currently an indexing project, but the indexing project will only cover up to 1850. There are other transcripts of baptisms and marriages that are available up to 1800, but I'll spare you those. Civil registration didn't start in Barbados for births until 1890, so that's after the period. So the church registers of baptisms, marriages, and burials are the core genealogical data sets, as they're now described for Barbados. And having these images available online via FamilySearch, they're free for you to use. There are no bishop's transcripts, so it's these and these alone. There's no census material. Well, I say that tongue-in-cheek. There was a census done in 1679 and another one done in 1750, but these are more like the 1840 census in the 1841 census in the UK, where they're just named individuals and family members identified by counts. But if you've got folks as early as 1679, 1680, or 1715 in the census, then or people in the island at that time, let me know and I'll do a look up in the census material for you. So let's head to Barbados.
While Bob's doing that, I must say that I looked at those images and the quality of them is absolutely superb. It really is.
When does the plane leave, Bob?
I think there's I want to say 2 flights a day, one BA, one Virgin, and if it's still the same, the Virgin flight goes out of Gatwick. The alternative here is that these films, the entire range of films that the Latter-day Saints have, are available for review at the London Family History Centre, which is currently located at Kew. So if you find a record outside of these online images, again, you can check the wiki. I put all the film numbers and what's in the films or on the films in the Guild wiki, or drop me a line. So hopefully you can see this familiar page of the FamilySearch screen.
Yep.
Okay, great. So what we'll do is head to the record collections for the Caribbean. You can do it either way, do all or just the Caribbean. What I'll quickly show you is Jamaica in terms of what's available. So this icon here indicates that there are images behind the Jamaican Church of England Parish Register transcripts between 1664 and 1880, and the Jamaica Civil Birth Registration, which I would assume probably starts about 1890 also. But essentially, this is how Barbados will eventually end up. You'll click on a source record, and you can type your name, and you'll be presented with a list of greys in Jamaica. Let's have a look at this. I was going to say Guy, but I can't be sure. Gover Grey, 8th of April 1818. You click on the name, it'll give you the usual transcripts. You'll click on the view image, and then it's automatically linked the index transcription to the image file in this particular case, the parish register transcripts for Jamaica. And as Colin says, this gives you some idea of the quality of the image. This is at a size that's convenient for the screen, but you can zoom right in. Okay, that might be a little bit excessive. So here we've got an example of, somewhere on this page will be one of yours, Chris.
Oh dear, some more work.
You haven't got anything else to do, Chris.
Don't tell my wife.
There's some interesting entries here. I've not seen this before. This was 1818, so before slavery was abolished. We've got some Africans or Creoles. They've actually got the colour or race of the individual. So we've got a Creole versus an African. A Creole just means they were born in Jamaica rather than born in Africa. Rather than colour. Colour would be highlighted by this here. I don't know if you can see that. That's a William White, ironically, a mulatto, which is half white, half black. Okay, so that gives you some idea of what you can expect when the entire transcription and images are linked together for Barbados. Let's head to Barbados now. We've already got some entries in the from the IGI. We've got baptisms, burials, and marriages. These are individuals that are searchable by name. There's no images attached to these records quite yet. Relatively small numbers. But it's this set that we're interested in. We're going to browse the church records for 1637 to 1887, and I'm going to show you how to use these for an ONS. Now, in the 1800s, because of the condition of the original registers that were stored in the churches and the perils of hurricanes, humidity, and just general conditions and water, but the general condition of the church registers, there were a number of laws passed in Barbados to try and help to prove the right to inherit property in particular. So as a result, in the 1800s, all of the parish registers were transcribed into a copy, and there's all of the registers that have been copied are the ones that we're going to see in a moment. I've mentioned that there are 11 parishes. Bridgetown is not a parish. I don't know why they put that up there. We'll have a look in a second. But these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 parishes. All of the church records should exist in one of those 11. Now, the reason they put Bridgetown separately, rather than put it in St Michael, is this is where they've put the Garrison Church of England records. Okay, but we don't need to concern ourselves about those just for now. There's another parish that we'll head for straight away, which covers all parishes. In other words, this is Barbados wide. I've mentioned that the parish registers were copied. Not only were they copied, they were indexed by the primary individual in the event. So we'll look at these indexes in a moment and head for the indexes first off. The vast majority of events will be Church of England events. There was a Jewish, Catholic, and other denominations, Methodists and Moravians. Not a tremendous amount of these, but it's worth checking just for completeness. But we're going to head for the Church of England because the vast majority of events are Church of England events. So these are the baptisms, marriages, burials come up first, burials and marriages. So these are the indexes that exist. Let's have a look at the baptisms first. And what we're going to do is, just because Howard Benbrook posted on the forum most recently about a discovery he's made, I'm going to show you how to use the baptism and marriage index, and the burials are exactly the same, to try and do an ONS extract. So head for the first letter. We've got here, can you see that? There's a B. There's a B, and this covers the range 1637 to 1757 for Howard's surname and its variant. So we'll head to the baptism index for the Bs. Interestingly, whilst I was here, I found a hell of a lot of Blakes, and Elizabeth Kipp is joining the Hangout this afternoon because she's got loads of Blakes in Barbados. So as Colin said, the image quality is tremendous. So a page turn here is particularly slow, let's say, but let's not worry about that too much. So here we've got the A's. This is the hangover from the A's. And here we've got 1637 to 1642. There are no entries. Again, you can see the quality of the handwriting. This was all done at the same time by the same person. So the indexes here were built at the same time as the registers were copied. And we should find, all being complete, 11 parishes. So these are indexed by year, initial letter of the surname, by parish, and the volume and the page number. So if you can imagine this index pointing to the primary individuals that were baptized in Christchurch in this particular case 1642. Here's the volume and page number that you would use in the old days. You would drag out volume 17 and find page 2. So let me go back to one I've prepared earlier. So we've got 1650, and I do know that we need to find 1650, which is obviously on the next page. Okay, you can zoom this to make it full size, but I find it's just too easy to miss an entry. So we'll scroll forward to 1650. Takes a little while for the big images to come in, but I believe this page should be 1650. So we've got 1650 here. So I'm just going to zoom in here because I've already looked these guys up. So here we've got, hopefully you can see that, 1650, the B's, and we've got a Bambrooks here, Bambrokes. It just says a child of Richard. Christchurch, and these are the details you would jot down. 1650, the name of the individual, the parish where the event occurred, the volume, and the page. That's only if you're going to find your way into these registers using these indexes. In truth, you probably only need the page number, but you'll need that to select the right record set. And there's another one here, a Banbrook, Banbrook, Elizabeth, again in Christchurch, volume 17, page 17. And the last one is in 1654, which is on the next page. (1654), and this is a, where are we? 1654. 1654, Banbrook, Anne, Christchurch, 1727. So all of these events have taken place in Christchurch. The chances are, as different as the spellings are for this surname, they may or may not be one of Howard's lots, but because all the events took place in Christchurch, they're quite possibly all related. So what we need to do now is head for the baptism registers and look these folks up. So we'll head back to Barbados Church Records. So this is a bit like a file structure here. Barbados Church Records, head back to there, choose Christchurch, Church of England. We want to look for the baptisms for the time period. They're all 1650s, so we don't need to look at any other film but the baptisms. Burial films and marriage registers are here too. Head to the baptism films. I'll let page 1 load because we saw that the volume for Christchurch was volume 17. So we're now looking at the church registers, or the copies of the church registers that exist in the Barbados Department of Archives. So here we've got Parochial Register Baptisms Volume 17A, which is good, that's where we want to be. And you would literally scroll through these pages to find, so as soon as you change a number in that box, you get the Go box, Go button, click the Go button, and it will take you to image number. And just to give you some idea of what a register page looks like, here's one I didn't prepare well, so I'm going to scroll forward again. You can scroll forward and backwards using these arrows, or you can jump to a page number. The next one I'm hoping will be a proper register image. There's no tie-up between the image number and the page number. We're looking for page 16. Okay, right, I'm just gonna jump to it. Here's one I prepared earlier. I do know, having looked before at this entry, that the first individual that we extracted, the child of Richard, is on image 12, and I'll show you how I got there. That should be page 16 in the register. So we can see here page 17. So the person we're looking for is on page 16. No tie-up, as I said, between the image number and the page. You'll just have to guess by jumping forward until you find the right page. And then I know that this entry happened on the 26th of June, and here we've got 26th of June for 1650, a child of Richard Bambrooks. And that is essentially the baptism entry for that individual. We do know the next one is on page 17, which is over here. And this is the one that Howard's Fire found, which is on the 18th of September. We've got September the 18th, Elizabeth, daughter of Robert Bambrook. So let me zoom out, and there's a couple of observations I do want to point out on this register. That should be enough. Note the clarity of the handwriting and the uniformity of the handwriting. Even more confirmation, if you needed, that this was all done by one person at some date after the event occurred. So confirmation that this is a copy register from the original. Another indication is if you look at this entry here, remembering this is a copy of the original register, we've got on December the 3rd, Elizabeth, daughter of William somebody. What this tells us is when this record was transcribed, they couldn't read the surname that was in the original register. So unfortunately, unless there's some other way of confirming this individual's surname, this entry might never be found by someone looking for them. So more confirmation that this is a copy register. And then last and by no means least, look at these two pieces of data here. We're talking about 1650, so we're looking at Julian dates, and yet the year has been added at the start of the calendar year from a Gregorian point of view. So we can deduce that these registers were copied sometime after 1752. Okay, so more confirmation. The handwriting's the same. Where the original couldn't be read, we've got this dash and clear Gregorian dates for Julian dates, if that makes sense. And that's essentially how you would go through. Go to the indexes first. Let's look up a marriage. So we'll go back to here. We want to look at all parishes. We want to look at Church of England. And we want to look now for a marriage index, again for Bambrook. Again, it's early. Let me go down and find the marriage film. So we're looking for marriage index, 1643 to 1748 for the initial letter B. That's the one we want. So this is exactly the same as we saw before, but for marriages. And again, I know that there's two for Howard under the surname Bambrook, one event occurring in 1645 and one event occurring in 1646. So conveniently, they're all on page 1. I do like these examples. So we'll head to 1645. Bambrook. You have to look up the page now to get the parish. So we know that Christchurch, marriages, volume 20, and where are we? 1645. Richard Bambrook is on page 4. And under 1646, Robert Bambrook, again, Christchurch, volume 20, he'll be on page 6. So essentially, that's how you would extract all of the index entries. Obviously, you would only look up the names of interest to you, then head over to volume 20, page 6. Let's do that now. Let's head off to Christchurch, Church of England. We want the marriages this time, 1643 to 1848. And I do know that we're going to start on page image number 6. And image number 6 will be, as mentioned, Christchurch, marriages for this period. So there's some confirmation that we've got the right thing. And we're looking for the 21st of October. This is it this one? No. Okay. That's not. Here we go. Typical marriage for the time period. Handwriting's fantastic. Richard Bambrook and Anne Cook were married on the 21st of October. So you can, with this image, if they're a little bit more difficult to read, you can invert the image, if that helps. You can print the image, you can rotate it, you can save the image to your computer for use, usual stuff. You can make the image full screen. And that's pretty much it for a marriage entry. The next one is on page 8, and I think this is another good example of some of the things you might run into. We found him, this is Robert Bambrook, married in 1646. And this one is the 25th of August. So here we are, August 25th, 1646. Robert Bambrook and his wife could not be identified. But we found a baptism for their child, also in Christchurch, and the mother's name is identified as Mary. So it's reasonable to assume at least we've got a wife's name here, if not a surname. And the process is exactly the same for burials. Head to the indexes, under all parishes, Church of England or the denomination of interest. Scroll down, find the burial index for your particular initial letter for the time period concerned, and then essentially do a page turn. I do stress that not too far away, individual indexes like we saw for Jamaica for the individuals will be available. Oh, one last thing I want to point out that I think is particularly useful. If you do head for one of these images, perhaps that's not going to be quite so useful. Let me go back to one for Howard, baptism 1637. And I know Colin seems to know most about this. If we head to image number 12, and this is the point about persistent URLs, Colin.
Yeah.
What I've noticed here with, once you've found the right image for an event, you could save the image or print the image if you choose. One thing I've noticed is that this URL here, this is unique to each image. So in other words, if you copy that URL, you can share this image with someone else. So if I was to post that into the chat area, and if you guys were to click on that link, that should bring up in your browser of preference this particular image. So if you find something and want to share it with someone, rather than post the image, you could send a link to someone else. That said, the question here is going to be about whether or not that URL on FamilySearch stays unique forever. Any questions?
No, I think that's fine, Bob, and certainly that does work because I've just pulled that image up.
It's fabulous, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Jamaica out of interest was claimed by the British, taken from the Spanish in 1655. The 1650s were probably the peak of importance and let's say wealth generation for Barbados. It became one of the most important, if not the most important, islands that were part of the colonial empire. But by 1650, folks were beginning to recognize that that sugar plantation stuff and slavery was a scale business. The more land you had, the more slaves you needed, the more money you could make. So they looked locally for other growing conditions that were similar and conducive to sugar plantation stuff, and decided that they would take Jamaica away from Spain. So Jamaica was claimed in 1655, and we've got records that are unbroken from 1655 up until Jamaican independence, which was 50 years ago this year. And the reason I keep harping on about FamilySearch is, A, they've filmed all of these registers, and they're now going through the process of digitizing the films and indexing these films. It's a tremendous resource, freely available, even if the URL links do not remain persistent forever. As long as you've got some reference to the page number volume, it should be easy enough for someone subsequently to go back and find stuff.
an even bigger reason for taking your own copy of the image too, and putting it in your collaboration database.
You absolutely can, indeed.
Just a question about Barbados records in general, Bob. I know, for instance, that my grandfather was there in the 30s, as
Right.
was my father. My grandfather was military, army. Are there any records there about military that you know of? I've obviously got his military record courtesy of the UK, but I wondered if there was anything likely to be there about both of them in the 30s that wouldn't have been in his military record.
Yeah, I mean, the church records, when the Latter-day Saints filmed them, the watershed was 1930, so you won't find anything on any film after 1930. That said, there is one record set at the National Archives. There was adult suffrage in 1951, so I don't know if they were there in 1951, Colin, but...
no, they weren't.
Okay.
They long left by then. They
Right.
both ended up coming back 37, 38 for the Second World War. So
Right.
it was the early 30s. I just wondered if there was anything there or not.
There might be at the archives. The archives obviously gets more material, but last time I was there, they only had stuff for, I want to say 1935 or so, up to 1935. But you're going to need to visit. But that said, there's been a lot of concern about the condition of the storage and the condition of the records generally in Barbados, and there's quite a few concerned individuals that are trying to cobble together to get them all digitized and made available. And I do know one guy personally who is currently going through all of the stuff in the archives. He doesn't have permission to use it yet, but we hope that will come. But that's funded largely by a single philanthropist, and that money's quickly running out. But I'll keep you posted if we find out any others. There's lots of wills, lots of deeds, and those are only available in Barbados. That said, if you do have an ancestor in Barbados that had, let's say, significant an interest in Barbados and in the UK, then those records are nearly always, from a will point of view, at the Prerogative Court of Canterbury, so in the National Archives at Kew. There are wills proved locally for folks that didn't have interest in the UK, and there are indexes to some of those films, but you have to apply to the National Archives to get them copied.
Okay, thanks.
But if you find stuff and you want some context behind the record sets, there are some other sources okay. There are some other public sources that are available that I can look up for you. I've got most of them.
I'll just have to go out there for a few months. Won't I?
Would you mean Q?
Possibly, yeah.
It's not quite the same, is it?
Definitely not.
No, it is pleasant.
Any other thoughts, comments, topics, updates that folks want to give?
About anything.
Yeah, anything.
I was recently over at the National Archives of Ireland in Dublin, and found out for me, which a wonderful discovery, which was that the wills pre-1922, if they weren't proved at the Central Prerogative Court in Dublin, copy wills still exist in the district probate offices. So a lot of my Fitzhenrys, being in Wexford, had their wills proved at Waterford, and I found some really interesting copy wills pre-1922, which are freely available on microfilm there. They've microfilmed the books.
Going back to when, roughly, Joe, did you find the Fitzhenrys?
It starts out in 1856. They're only the copy wills. The wills that you post 1922 that you can pull up on request are amazing. You get the original handwritten will, and all of the documents that went with it. So the administrator proving who they were, if there was landed property, the extract from the land registry file saying exactly where in the county, the parish, the townland it was, how much it was worth, and complete inventories of the person's property as well. It was absolutely fantastic, and they let you take pictures of it all.
Oh, good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
That might be worthy of a post on the forum.
But you do have to order the wills up before you go there, at least a day in advance, because they're held off-site.
And it's closer than Barbados.
Closer than Barbados, yeah.
But it's not as warm,
much
Chris. Joe, that might be worthy of a note to the forum.
Which forum? The forum or the bulletin board?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the wiki.
I tried to put something on the wiki when I went there last year, sort of like a user's guide to the GRO in Dublin, and I couldn't work out how to do it. So, because that again is rather Byzantine, the way that works as well.
we are looking at a new wiki.
Yeah. So I've got it all written up, and it's just sitting there because I can't work out how to do it.
I guess one last topic I can think of. Are you guys involved with, or anyone aware of any commemorative events that are going on in 2014 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the start of World War One?
I'm not. No, not over here anyway.
No.
Yeah, local World War One group is doing something and has enlisted our regional Notts and Leicester goons in that. But everything's very at an outline planning stage at the moment. But in principle, we said yes, we'd help them with that.
Okay, and that's Nottingham and Leicester.
Yeah, well, Nottingham and Leicester are combined.
Okay. Because I've met Michelle Patient, who's down in New Zealand, and they're planning quite a lot of events, as are, I believe, Australia. I think Jim Benedict's mentioned that there's a lot of stuff being considered in Canada, and I think we'll probably end up waking up to this next year, as I guess the rest of the UK decides what it's going to do. UK and Ireland decides what it's going to do, if anything. Okay, good.
Sussex has put out an appeal for family histories or stories that are relevant, but I don't have any more details on that.
Brilliant stuff. All right, guys. Any other?
Just one last thing, Bob. That trees on FamilySearch is due to go live this weekend for anybody, and in fact, you can sign up for it now, even though it's not officially launched, if anybody's interested. And in fact, your FamilySearch screen did show a link to trees on it earlier.
Oh, right. I was so concentrating on what I was trying to do that I didn't see it.
Yeah, so this
you
is...
can't multitask.
I can't chew gum and walk at the same time, Colin. Chris.
Yeah, so that's a soft launch, and more functionality is being added by the day, and it's supposed to be fully live sometime next week.
Do you know what it would entail at a high level, Colin?
Simplistically, it allows you to put your own family tree on there and then link it to the individual source records that FamilySearch has got. And this, again, approaches this master persona, unique ID reference thing. And it allows you to look at other people's trees and see where they intersect. It's a better version of ancestry trees, basically, because it links back to the source documents that are on FamilySearch.
Okay, but not elsewhere.
But not elsewhere, no.
Okay, well, that's a good start. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Helen, I interrupted you.
No, that's quite all right. Could I put out a plea for help? I've just moved to Surrey. Jan Cooper, the regional rep, is very active in little local meetings, and what they are trying to, what they have decided to do and are going ahead with, is creating their own hangout. Now, I have my broadband is with Sky, which means if I take a laptop out, I have access to any cloud, wireless access. And at the moment, I'm trying to compile a list of Weatherspoons or Giraffe or other. Yeah, I know, spelt with a small G.
No, it was the thought that you were compiling a list of all the Weatherspoons in Surrey.
Yeah, yes. And where it would be possible to have a room where we could hold a meeting using my laptop and cloud access. If and when I get a list together, I might try and wiki it, but I wondered, has anyone else tried to do this or know a source for multiple sites that might have meeting rooms with cloud access?
So, Helen, could you just go in and say why? So, I mean, you're talking about getting a hangout, but is that for individuals joining the hangout, or are you talking about whole groups of people going and creating the hangout?
This is a group of about 8 people that will be holding a hangout somewhere. Okay.
But as individuals or as a group? I mean, like we at the moment are holding a hangout.
Pass on that at the moment.
Yeah, there are 5 of us at the moment with hangouts, and we don't need to be in Weatherspoons.
No. But the idea is to have other local meetings and run it as a hangout so that people from other areas can access it. Or have a meeting for people who don't have access so they can join in other meetings.
So you're looking for a meeting room that's got internet access, which allows you to run a meeting there and also put it on Hangout so anybody anywhere can also join.
Indeed. Thank you very much for phrasing it for me.
There are various websites. I think there's one like free Wi-Fi hotspots or something like that, which if you put it into Google and you can narrow it down by county and country and so on, and it will list all your free Wi-Fi hotspots locally, and then you'll just have to look through to see if any of those are then suitable for holding your meeting.
Indeed, this is what I have been doing, and seeing whether they advertise, the local Weatherspoons or Giraffe, whether they have a meeting room available.
Yeah. I think it would, because a lot of hotels have free Wi-Fi for people, but then of course you'd need to hire the meeting room.
Precisely. Yeah, this is why a room in a pub or a back room in a cafe.
The other approach is, who's the guy that does the genealogical EOGN?
Dick
thingy, yes.
Yeah.
He goes around spends 6 months. He lives in the States, and he spends 6 months of the year touring around the south of the States to get away from the winter.
Oh, Dick Eastman.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's got a little touring vehicle with a Mini on the back. And he has a series of articles on how he gets access to the free Wi-Fi at all these places. So he has a little wireless router on the top of his little vehicle, and he sits in the car. Well, he sits about within a mile of the free Wi-Fi and just hooks in. So if all you need for that is one of these routers that you kind of plug into the wall and use them yourself. So I've often wondered about looking around for the feasibility of that over here, but
Well, they used to, Chris, in the early days of Wi-Fi, there used to be a painted mark that people used to put outside of buildings. This was before web encryption came along, that most Wi-Fi access was free, and there used to be almost a sign that people would paint on the ground to indicate that the free Wi-Fi or parasitic Wi-Fi was available. At,
Which group of Jans you belong to? I kind of go along to her northwest Surrey ones, as I live up in just in Sandhurst.
Yes, I've been to 2 so far. One in Virginia Water and the other Feltham. They've just been small meetings. You know, about 15 people.
Set one up with Teresa Pascon for a briefing on TMG, and unfortunately someone was ill and he couldn't go forward.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Jan's increasingly looking, as you say, Helen. She's very active in the, let's say, regional meeting space. She's arranged a number of hangouts. I think myself and I can't remember who else were invited to join. I think when we first did it, we encouraged the regional members to all get together in one physical location, a bit like we did at last year's conference, so that we could help folks overcome the getting connected to a hangout piece. Do it collectively, all sit in the same room, and you get some idea of what's going on. Then eventually, I'm not saying you don't have to get together, but you can invite other speakers. So, for example, Colin could talk about his collaboration tool. Someone can talk about TMG or Custodian, and they can join your meeting from wherever they are, or they can talk about record sets. But I think, in short, Helen, there's no convenient place to go, because we're now making the same consideration from a committee point of view. Where can we hold a committee meeting that's a nice quiet place that has alcohol because you need it, but also has good Wi-Fi access to allow remote viewers.
So if I can create a list, it would obviously be welcome outside Surrey.
Indeed.
Yeah. Right.
Any other?
There's always the TNA at Q. They've got one.
Yeah. Can I just say that leaving markers there for Wi-Fi access reminds me of the marks that the tramps used to leave outside houses if they found hospitality or dogs or whatever there.
Oh dear.
And you go out and change them, because there were ones that said this is a fantastic place to go to. So if you went outside and just crossed that out and put your own, which says don't go anywhere near. You're not on.
You're not talking, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. Next month's hangout, I certainly won't be available, nor will Jim.
Nor me.
Yeah, this Saturday next month coincides with the Maritime Records seminar.
So what's that? Is that the 17th, Bob?
Yeah, that's right, Colin. So I don't know if you want to go ahead or...
Yeah, I don't mind putting it up. Not a problem. On the 17th.
Do you want to be an admin, Colin? Or do you want me...
I can set one up just purely on my own, which is the Guild Circle. So I can send it out to the Guild Circle on Google Plus. Or if you want to set me up as an admin, I can do it on the Guild and YouTube it.
All right. That saves having to copy and paste circles around. I'll see if I can sort that out today. I'll send you an invite to the admin stuff, and yeah, don't worry about the administrative stuff so much. It's just really for setting up the Hangout to the right audience. All right, good.
Yeah. Can I ask if the maritime talks will be broadcast internationally as we had at the AGM?
I don't think so, Helen. We did contemplate doing that. There's two issues predominantly with the broadcasting stuff. One, as soon as we go Hangouts on air, I believe the Hangout becomes public, so we we can't prevent anyone from joining. That's not so much of an issue. There's nothing naughty going on at the Maritime Seminar, but we don't want to.
So the committee meeting isn't going to be broadcast then?
What do you mean, the AGM? Chances are,
no, the committee.
The committee? No, that'll be a private hangout. but back to your point, Helen. I've got to speak to Cliff. We were thinking about video recording the whole thing and maybe punching a CD, which could either be sold or we could put a YouTube video up in the members area. I've got to speak to Cliff probably today to work out if we're going to go ahead and do that. There's just so much interest in the talks that I think at the very least we should record it and make the recording subsequently available somehow.
Lovely.
But there was a chance that the folks at the Maritime Museum, because I think it's quite a professional auditorium, have video recording, and I think we were considering paying for them to record the stuff. But I'll find out from Cliff, and if I do get an answer, I'll drop you guys a line.
Okay.
All right. I think that's a wrap. Thank you very much indeed for your time, guys, and I won't see you next month, but.
I guess running out.
Yeah, the next one will be the Christmas hangout.
Let's see you at Greenwich.
Indeed,
So-
see you at Greenwich.
See you at the Greenwich.
Funny
Okay, all
party
the
hats. Bye.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.